All right, everybody. Welcome. NorCal Sports Network. Dan Coachimilio along with Los D and Bora. We're going to be covering Niners tonight. It's going to be these two guys, Los D and Bora, as unfortunately, man, I hit my head again and got me a little concussion. So I'm not feeling the greatest tonight. So going to turn it over to these guys. They're going to be talking Niner football. As the title says, is Brock Purdy the NFL MVP so far? Some other Niner stuff going on, maybe some fantasy football, and maybe they'll touch on a little bit of playoff baseball. Dodgers looks like they're making a comeback in the top of the seventh inning. They got 2 runs after 2 out and nobody on. They got 4 consecutive hits. And I'm looking here, and they're still – oh, no, now they go to the bottom of the 7th. They got out of the 7th. So, anyway, thanks, Robert. Appreciate that. So, Los, Bora, take it away. I'm just going to kind of step in the background, and I'm not going to be too involved. So,
relax.
Go for it.
We got you.
Yeah.
Feel better.
Thanks, guys. All right. Have a good one.
Yep.
I'll help you guys with the chat and stuff. So,
no doubt.
All right.
Welcome, football fans.
Yep.
Dan and Eric enjoying a little bit of a night off. Those guys have been hustling since the channel started. You know, going at it almost every night with Giants baseball and baseball in general. But it is football season. The Niners are quite possibly the best team in the league. We are a NorCal Sports Network covering NorCal sports teams. So it's only fitting that we talk and transition a little bit more into Niners football. And Warriors basketball is upcoming as well. So glad you guys tuned in. You got the OG and you got the kid here breaking it down.
All right. While Los is on a little break, the title of the video is Brock Purdy the MVP. He's playing like it. He's doing really well, and he very much could be. He currently has 9 touchdowns and no interceptions. He leads the league with not having any interceptions. I think he's top 10 in almost all the major statistical categories. I know he's the first in passer rating and quarterback rating, which is a pretty good estimate, I think, on how well a quarterback's playing. And the argument always around Brock is he a system quarterback? How would he do on another team? And quite frankly, he could be a system quarterback. I don't know how well he would do on another team, and quite frankly, we might never find out. And that's the best thing. He's on the 49ers right now. They have a great roster, and he's playing like a top 5 quarterback right now, if not better. When Jimmy Garoppolo was on this team, he was never playing at a top 10 level. There was always the maybe 1 or 2 game streak where he wouldn't have an interception, but it was always like, oh, he might be turning it around. Boom. Interception right to the linebacker. And he always had the quick feet. He didn't throw the ball down the field one bit. And I think there's a better sense of confidence around Brock. Kyle trusts him. The team trusts him. And I think he trusts himself, more importantly.
Fred Warner was on a national show saying he is the leader of our team. I mean, that's an all-pro 6-year veteran that is basically passing on the leadership of the team. Maybe he's not the most vocal guy in the world, but he leads by example, and he's confident. And, hey, they're talking about him now on a national level, like it's being discussed. So that game Sunday night against Dallas, against America's team and the best defense in the whole world, opened some eyes, because that's all a lot of Niner fans heard is He's done it against some weak defenses. He's a system quarterback, blah, 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 blah. We know what his limitations are.
Yeah.
Some of the things he can't do, but focus on what he can do. And nobody's picked apart Dallas like that. And you know what? I'm very curious to see what Justin Herbert, who is the prototypical perfect quarterback as far as height, arm strength, knowledge, everything.
Everything.
Can make every throw possible. He's going to go up against that same defense. And I would be willing to bet that I know he's not putting up 42. I don't think he's going to put up 32. I think he'll have a good day. I don't think he'll have a great day because the accuracy that Brock brings to the table, the processing that he does at rapid speed, a little more rapid than what I'm getting right now on an internet signal. Apologize for that. I did upgrade, guys. I did upgrade to 1G, the most powerful that you can get, but just got a new username, new password, and for some reason it's not jiving. So if I freeze for a second or two, Bor will take it over. Apologize.
Yep.
But yeah, Brock is playing at a really high level. But we know football is a week-to-week thing. 2 weeks ago, CMC was the MVP of the league. Now Brock's played a little bit better. Teams are focusing on CMC, so now it's on to Brock. Maybe Ayuk gets hot in the next 2 weeks. He puts up 8 for 140 and 10 for 162 and 3 touchdowns, and he'll be in the conversation. So football goes week to week. But the fact that a kid that was drafted as late as he was and has, the size and some of the limitations that we know he does, he's making up for it in spades in other areas. And, hey, great for the Niners and great for us as fans.
Yep. I mean, you touched on it earlier. You said that he runs the system. He runs the system, and he has his limitations, right? But he runs the system to perfection, at least so far. He's second in completion percentage behind Josh Allen, I think, who's probably a top 2 quarterback. Kyle's system is very hard to process and get used to. Brock Purdy's done it in about a year and a half. I just think that speaks levels to who he is as a person and how much he really works on wanting to be great, because he doesn't have the tangibles. He's like 6 foot. He doesn't have the super booming arm. But you know what? You don't need that in this league, and you especially don't need that in Kyle's system. Kyle, all you need to be is a distributor. You just need to be a point guard. You have CMC, Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, Juszczyk. Those are 5 all-pro caliber players on your offense. And all you got to do is just hit them in stride. That's all you got to do, and that's all that Kyle's asking for, and that's what he's doing right now.
Think about like a playbook, and think about all we've heard since Shanahan has become the head coach. That, if you use an analogy about like just basic math, and then you have algebra, and then you have geometry, Bora's obviously still kind of in school, so it's fresh to him about these math classes. And then you have calculus way up here, and that's Kyle's offense. So when we talk about doesn't have, the biggest height or the biggest arm, but he picked up that offense fast, and not a lot of quarterbacks can do that. And I just think that's not talked about a lot by scouts. Scouts are so infatuated with height, arm strength, and their 40-yard time. And that's all they're measuring these quarterbacks, and that's why they're missing so much.
You know what you can't measure? You can't measure the brain.
You can't measure the brain, and it'd be funny like at the combine. Like we all watch the combine in Indianapolis, and they do the 40-yard, they do how far you can throw the ball. But they need to do some drills that has something to do with like how fast you can calculate where this guy, where that guy, and where that guy is. I don't know. I'm just trying to think what kind of drills could you do to show how fast the quarterback goes from option 1, option 2 to option 3, because that's what made Montana great. Is that guy knew where everybody on the field was. Did you ever see the movie Bloodsport where he used to fight and he was blindfolded and he knew where people were? That's Montana. He knew the offense so well that he could basically close his eyes and he could know here's a curl, here's an out, and here's a post. And he could almost hit it. And you can't measure that. And that is what is making Brock quite possibly a top 5 quarterback. And if he keeps going this way, hell effing yes, he could be the MVP of the league. What a story that would be.
Yeah, I think in the overall combine is just an assessment of your 40 time, how strong you are, how fast you are. I think the thing that's gained traction recently is the S2 cognitive test,
Right.
which Trey Lance scored super highly on. And Brock Purdy, I think it was reported that he was one of the best, or that the Niners were like blown away with what they saw in the test results. I'm not exactly sure what the actual test is, but I think I might have heard where it's like you might be attached to like a headset or something or a VR, and you have to make those decisions, which makes sense. He's his ability to go from read 1 to read 2 to read 3 to the check down is just amazing. He does it so fast. And I don't know if you guys have watched, or if you, Los, have watched Jimmy Garoppolo. I bet you have this year.
Far
But
too. Yeah.
he's leading the league in interceptions. And if his first read isn't there, that's when you see the happy feet. And that's when he gets super stressed, and that's when he throws the pick. And that's basically his main issue, I think, is if the first read isn't there, all hell breaks loose. With
Jimmy
Brock,
has 3 to 6 throws every game where you're just like, what?
yeah.
What the F throw was that? What was he thinking? And like Boris said, it's a panic. It's my first read is covered. Oh shit, my second read's covered, and it's panic. Do I go back to the first read? Oh, he's covered. I'm gonna throw it anyway because he doesn't have the foot speed or the movement or the mobility to do the little thing. Did you see Purdy's first touchdown? He got rushed from the outside. There was a small crevice lane to just step up. He bought time and he kept his eyes upfield. Like if you looked at that play again, Brock could have ran for about 10 or 15 yards easily. And
yeah, the thing with Brock is he's so comfortable in the pocket,
he's not
and
slow.
he's super comfortable in the pocket, and he just looks bored out there. If you watch Trey Lance, if you watch Jimmy Garoppolo, their mind is racing. They're like, oh, where do I go with the ball? Do I go here? Do I go here? Is my first read open? Is my second read open? But with Brock, it's like he looks super bored. It's like I don't it's just he's the super senior, and he's repeating a class.
Did you know anything about him when the Niners drafted him at all?
I had heard his name because I'd watched a little college football. I'd known the name, but I didn't watch any tape on him or anything. I don't know if I watched any games of him.
I watched him against Oklahoma and Jalen Hurts. And I bet Oklahoma that day because it's like I was looking at Oklahoma's roster. I knew Jalen Hurts was a baller. I didn't know much about Iowa State or Brock Purdy. And I watched that game. He went throw for throw against him. I was like, who is this kid? But then I saw his size and everything like that. And I got caught up like with everybody else. Like, okay, he's a good college quarterback. You know, some of them, them smaller quarterbacks that, can make throws, this and that, but are they going to hold up in the NFL? So I didn't think anything of him. So when the Niners drafted him, like, whatever, he'll be a good third string quarterback. And then when he got put in against Miami, and and Miami blitzed the shit out of him. He made that one throw where they brought like 8
to
guys.
Kittle, yeah.
And he just going backwards threw a dime to Kittle right on the money. That's the throw that opened my eyes and said, holy crap, that is a hell of a play. And after that game, I went back and I watched some Brock Purdy highlights at Iowa State because, you go on YouTube and you can watch anything. And, man, he just made throw after throw and after throw, and it's right there. And his arm was solid, wasn't fantastic. I didn't see 70-yard heat-seeking missiles like Herbert and like Mahomes and, who am I missing? Josh Allen. Doesn't have that, but that's okay. Like, he does so many things well. So when I saw that video, I'm like, we may have something here. And He's undefeated. What more can you ask for? What sickens me is this. The rest of the country and people that hate the Niners are waiting for that one game that he does not play well. That one game, or that game where the Niners are down by 3 and they need a late score, and he doesn't get it done for some reason. He'll drive the team down. The kicker will miss the field goal. Purdy will get the blame. They're just waiting and waiting, because that's what people do. When people get, rise to the top too fast, they want them to kick them down, especially fans and players that don't like the Niners. So they're waiting for that. And my response to that would be, every great quarterback, name them: Montana, Brady, Marino, Favre, they all had shitty games. They all made bad throws. Mahomes. I swear Mahomes, God bless him, he is the best quarterback in the league, talent for talent. He has 2 Super Bowls. He's gotten away with a lot of mistakes, man. And quite frankly, he's had a few calls that have bailed him out in both Super Bowls. Let's just call it spade a spade. I'm not saying he won because of them, but they helped him quite a bit. Every quarterback is going to make mistakes and bad throws, and everybody's waiting for Purdy to do that, and he will at some point. He's going to.
Yeah, he will. He'll have an F game sooner or later, and the Niners aren't going to go undefeated. At least, I mean, they could technically, but it's more or less they're going to lose a game, and I think. Well, the title of the video is Brock Purdy the MVP so far. I would say yes. My answer to that question would be yes. He's statistically one of the best, if not the best, quarterback.
Has he surpassed CMC in your eyes?
I think so. Just because against Dallas, CMC was ineffective. Let's just call it what it is.
So that one great game by Purdy is, for you at least, not saying it's right or wrong, but that one great game Purdy had against a great, supposedly, defense outweighs the 4 great games CMC has had against lesser competition. Is that fair?
And here's why. They played the Steelers, Rams, who aren't bad, the Giants, and the Cardinals. I mean, if they had Eddie Lacy, they would have won the game. They would have won all those games, I think. So I think while Purdy was like carrying the offense, I think Brock sort of just had to step back and just hand it off and make his throws. In this game against Dallas had went out and said it that they're gonna force Brock to beat him, and they're gonna stop CMC. And they basically did that. McCaffrey had the touchdown, but he averaged 2.7 yards a carry. That's basically being ineffective.
Is Purdy, in your mind, right now ahead of Josh Allen for MVP? Not saying he's a better quarterback, because we know the difference. Like
right now, yeah, I would say he is. Just because Josh Allen he's had like 1 or 2 games. Purdy hasn't had.
Is it more because of the 5-0 record versus 3-2? Because you got to factor in Josh Allen's running stats.
I think that's a part of it. Because you can't win MVP and your team have a 500 record or a losing record. You have to be elevating your team to some point. And I just think Brock in this Dallas game was really forced to make his throws. And I know he only had he was 16 of 24 or something, so he didn't have to throw much. But the throws that he did make were just super impressive. They were right on the money. He threw him in stride. The 2-play sequence that was really, really impressive was the 40-yard. It's like 20 yards in the air, but the completion to Ayuk that would have gone for 40 yards.
That was a great throw.
It was on second down. It was
on the sidelines too.
Exactly.
Remember, everybody said he can only throw in the middle. That was up the sidelines, led him perfect. Wasn't out of bounds.
It was.
He could still run and go.
Yep, and Ayuk wasn't wide open.
He was not
there. He just hit him right in stride. It wasn't a lob. It was a strike. He let him, but there was a holding penalty in the next play on 3rd and 15 or whatever. He hits Debo for 30 yards. And that was an unbelievable throw because that throw shows anticipation, and it shows that he trusts his receiver. Because when he threw that ball, Debo was just barely getting out of his break.
And let's be real.
Open.
Let's be real, guys. How many times when Jimmy was our quarterback and it was 3rd and 15 did we think, "Oh man, we're punting. This is a draw or a screen for 3 yards, punt the ball."
Yeah, well, how many times would there be 3rd and 15 and Kyle would call a screen pass to Debo or a halfback draw? He didn't have any confidence in Jimmy, and Kyle trusts Brock to make those plays. And so far in 5 games, Brock has delivered, and I think Brock has been the most valuable player to his team and to the league. I just think Mahomes hasn't been textbook Mahomes. He's been good, but he hasn't been great. He almost lost to the Jets and he lost to the Lions. And he hasn't had great performances. I just think Brock so far in the season through 5 games has been the most consistent quarterback in the whole league. And I think he's elevated each of his players around him.
What's going to be really sad is if this continues and Brock plays better than anybody and by the eye test is the MVP. He doesn't get it because I've seen it happen many, many times before in other sports. East Coast riders. It takes a lot for a West Coast player. Sometimes even the Heisman. McCaffrey might have been the best player in the year he didn't win the Heisman. I forgot who won it, but it is hard for a West Coast player, college or pro, to win awards like that unless you are like Barry Bonds and it's just like so overwhelmingly.
I think so if
Brock
is going to be the MVP, he really has to run away with it. It can't be
it has to be unanimous. If it's close, it'll go to Mahomes, it'll go to Hurts, it'll go to Josh Allen. And that would suck big time.
Yep. All right, Los. Give me one player that the 49ers should target in a trade. They've already gotten Randy Gregory. I think he should be suiting up this game. I don't know if they have any needs really per se, but if you can give me one trade that would really put them over the top.
I mean, we've been talking about Surtain. We've been talking about Ward. It's going to cost them a lot. If they wanted to do something a little bit smaller and maybe just as effective, is call and find out DJ Reed. You know,
I love that. Yeah.
I mean, he's been with the Niners. He knows our system. The Jets and the Niners have connections, obviously, with Saleh being there. They could use more picks or players. I'm always saying, like, why do we have to trade, draft picks? I mean, because the Niners have a big payroll. They need to they need to have draft picks that are affordable to add balance to the roster as far as the salary cap goes. So I know they have 11 picks. So, yeah, could they give up a 5th rounder? Don't give up a 5th rounder. You know what's weird? I think I'd rather give up a 5th rounder than a 3rd rounder because they hit on 5th rounders, man.
Yep.
But, I mean, like, where they're deep, like, if the Jets like somebody like a Tay Martin or a Willie Snead, or even, I mean, would you trade Javon Kinlaw for DJ Reed straight up? Like, Kinlaw's finally starting to play well, but he's going to be a free agent after this year. I don't think they're going to sign him anyway. Robert Saleh is a defensive-minded coach. He probably knows Kinlaw, knows he's coming around, has heard all the reports that his knee is finally healthy. I think they would do that straight up, and you don't have to give up any draft picks. Now, you're giving up a little depth. If Hargrave goes down, then you got to stick Kevin Givens in there. So
the tough thing is DJ Reed, I think, is signed for another year after this year.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the Jets would want to take on a half-year player, just because I don't think if they would be selling off DJ Reed, I think that would be sort of admitting that they're not going to be in contention. So I think that would make it a little difficult just to offer up a player on his expiring contract.
If there's a good right tackle, any tackle, because God forbid Trent Williams goes down. I mean, then we're talking about Jalen Moore or moving McKivitz to left and then moving Matt Pryor to right. That's kind of scary. The
That is scary.
quarterback is the easy answer to that, but Womack, I've said this before, Womack's coming, Luter's coming, and if there's a team out there that has a good offensive tackle, whether he's starting or whether for some reason he's on the bench, that the Niners can get, I think that would be a great move because I do not feel great at all about what's behind McKivitz and Trent Williams. And if we don't have a tackle to protect Purdy playing at this high of a level, then it's going to kind of it's going to force Kyle to doing what he had to do with Jimmy, keep a tight end in, keep extra blockers in, less guys out on the route, less options, and less explosive plays. So I like the idea of getting another tackle.
I would love to get another tackle. I just don't know if there are any available. Like, I mean, seriously, that would be the dream scenario, right? Because Colton McKivitz is still a question mark to some degree. He's played pretty well. He held his own against Dallas, but this is his first year starting. I think this is like his 6th career start, maybe. So he's still a question mark, and I think if you can upgrade at a position, then you should. And I think if you could upgrade at right tackle, I think you should. If you can upgrade at right guard, because Spencer Burford's getting better, but is he the best available option at right guard? Or can you trade a 4th round pick for an experienced guard? I would get Daniil Hunter just because I think you can never have enough D-line depth.
Damn, another pass rusher.
I would, and I would give up a 3rd or a 2nd for Minnesota to take on some of his salary. Because this is his last year. And I just think in the NFL, players can go down, right, at any second. And I wouldn't trade for him right now, but let's say that Randy Gregory isn't who we think he is. Let's say he's not as fast, he's not as explosive. And let's say they're still lacking that really opposite edge from Bosa. I think Daniil Hunter would be amazing. I think he's up there in sacks right now.
He'd be an every down player where Gregory could be more of a 3rd down guy coming in on passing situations.
He could, and I just think if we're in the 5th week of the season right now, and you got to play. There's 18 weeks in the regular season, and then 3 to 4 more weeks in the playoffs. And the goal is the Super Bowl. I think that's the team's expectations. I think that's the fan base's expectations. And I think that's a lot of media's expectations. So I just think if you really want to go all in, then you get that one guy. Whether it's a DJ Reed or a Daniil Hunter or a right tackle, you get that guy to put yourself over the edge.
Yeah.
And really, really make that impact and say really to the rest of the league, this is our year and we're going all in.
And Aaron L brings up a good point about, Mason might be better than Mitchell. He's definitely healthier than Mitchell, and maybe Elijah Mitchell's that trade piece for DJ Reed. Elijah Mitchell's a good back. He's just not healthy. Robert Saleh knows how good of a back he is. When he's healthy, he's a hell of a player. But if they'd be willing to take that, I would take DJ Reed right now. It'd be a great slot corner.
Or you put him outside and have Lenore move inside.
Yeah.
Because the thing with corners is you can never have too many corners. I mean, you can never have too many defensive linemen. You can never have too many offensive linemen. But I think corner is the one position where you need really good to great guys, because it's an offensive driven league right now. We saw it in the Super Bowl. The calls favor the offense. You can't, it's not as physical as it once was. And it's not as you're not able to be as aggressive as you were in the past. I think if you get DJ Reed, and you have a cornerback trio of DJ Reed, Diamador Lenore, and Mooney Ward, I think that alone puts you over the top. And I think you're gonna be able to really shut down a team's passing game, because you're gonna be going up against the Eagles with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, the Bengals with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
Yep.
Mahomes, the Chiefs, they don't have a great receiver right now, but they might be trading for one. The Bills with Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, the Dolphins with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. The true contenders in this league have great duos at wide receiver, and in order to beat them, you need guys who can play up to par with those receivers.
I would finally feel comfortable and somewhat confident going up against Kansas City, which I usually don't. I just think Kansas City is a bad matchup because Kansas City's defense is not that great. They weren't that great in 19. Like, the Niners should have scored more than they did. They scored 20 points in that game. Like, I think Purdy could put up 40, 45 points on Kansas City.
Yep.
And Kansas City is going to score, but our D is good enough to stop them 2 or 3 times to hold them to maybe 30. And I could see them beating them. I feel really confident for once about our offense more than our defense. And that's what's, our offense let us down against the Rams. Our offense let us down against the Chiefs. Our offense, Purdy got hurt last year, so that's a wash. But in the biggest games, the defense has played pretty good. It's been the offense. So,
yeah, I think this is the first year in the Lynch and Kyle tenure where the offense is better than the defense, and the offense has the capability to carry a team and put up 40 to 50 points, or 30 to 40 points on any given night against any given team. Because Dallas's defense is supposedly a top 3 defense. Supposedly.
Aren't you curious to see how they play against
I'm really curious, because the teams they faced before is like the Patriots, the Giants, the Cardinals, who put up 28. Those aren't good teams.
You know what's funny, Bora? In my other fantasy league, I have Herbert and Anthony Richardson got hurt, so he's out. But I also got Dobbs. And I was thinking at first, damn, maybe I'll play Dobbs. He's kind of playing well. I don't know if I want to play Herbert against Dallas. And then I thought about it. It's like, man, Dallas is not all that on. If Herbert has time, I know he lost Mike Williams. That doesn't help. So I want to see, like, really how Dallas adjusts, first of all, and second of all, do the Chargers come out, and because Eckler will be back, and try to run at Dallas, because it's like that's what everybody's talking about.
I think that's their weakness, right?
You can run on Dallas. You can run on Dallas. So I don't need to start Herbert and then run 45 times and Herbert those 160 yards and 1 touchdown from a fantasy purpose. But and that's the other thing that I wanted to talk about tonight is, obviously we're in our fantasy league and we have fun with it, blah, 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 blah. Fantasy football has really taken the story and narrative about offensive playmakers. Like, when we look at Purdy up until this game against Dallas, we look at his fantasy stats, and there's nothing to write home about. They're like, he didn't throw for 303, so we think he didn't have a good game, when he had a great game. Like, if he threw, I don't have it right in front of me, but like if he throws 245 with 2 touchdowns and no picks, but he made all the plays, he ran the ball, he had control of the game, he managed the game, and he made plays when they needed to. It's like, that guy played well, but because he doesn't have fantasy football stats,
because he only scored 12 points instead of the 25.
Yeah, there's a story that Purdy's not that great, and there's people out there that really think that. They think, Well, let me look at Purdy's stats. What's so great about him? You know, he's not putting up these ridiculous statistics.
And I think fantasy football is one part of it, but it's also just stat watching because
Yeah,
Purdy
sure.
has the great stats. But if you look at other quarterbacks in the league, let's look at Russell Wilson. He has great stats, and from an outsider looking in, you're like, oh, he's back to old Russ. But in the big moments, last week against the Jets, fourth quarter, like 3 minutes remaining, he fumbled and he lost them the game because they had a shot to win the game. So at Kirk Cousins, if you look at the stats, he has pretty good stats, but the mistakes come at the worst time possible. And those consistent mistakes are why these guys aren't. If you're just watching, you're like, oh yeah, I can see that's not a tier 1 or tier 2 quarterback. They're just average. I think if you actually watch the game, and the stats might not be too good, but if you're watching the game and you see what the quarterback is doing, then you can really judge a quarterback based on that. You can't just look at the stats and look at the fantasy football scores.
Yeah, I know all you guys are posting like baseball stuff, and I know you're really begging for us to go to baseball, but it's not going to happen. But I just will say this. Thank you, Arizona.
Yep.
We hate the Dodgers. Now back to our previously broadcast of football. It's football, man.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think just going ahead to Dallas, right? Looking at Dallas's team, their schedule gets really tough. Let me pull it up here because
while you're pulling that up, go ahead, finish your thought.
I got it. So they play the Chargers next week, then they play the Rams,
Mm-hmm.
then they play the Eagles. Then they play the Giants, Panthers, and Commanders. That's all right. Then they play the Seahawks, the Eagles, the Bills, the Dolphins, and the Lions. So that's not a cakewalk. That's a pretty hard schedule, and there are realistically like 7 losable games in that stretch. And I'm not saying they're going to lose all 7 of those games because they're not going to lose all 7. But this week against the Chargers is the week to sort of prove to your team and your fan base, it's like, oh yeah, we're legit. We're legit playoff contenders because they're not Super Bowl contenders. Everybody knows that. They're not Super Bowl contenders.
You know,
But
17 teams played the Niners last year, and the week after, 17 teams lost. And if you remember from this last Niner Cowboy game, there were a lot of Cowboys taking a long time getting back up.
they got
lost.
beat up.
They already lost Diggs. They now lost Van Der Esch, right?
Van Der Esch, yeah.
Me and the names. Van Der Esch. Lost him. They lost, I think, a safety.
I think they lost another special teams guy too.
They and the guys that aren't injured, it's Wednesday. They're going to be in the hot tub until Friday. Like, playing the Niners is a physical game. Now, thank God they have an extra day till Monday, but they flew back to Dallas. I know, because they didn't stay on the West Coast, because I like listening to 105.3 The Fan on YouTube. That's the Dallas Cowboys radio. So I love hearing their fans come in and cry. God darn it, man! Them fucking Niners are whooping our ass, man. How we losing to Brock Purdy, man? Fucking entertainment. So it's going to be really interesting. It could be a get right game, but it could also, it could go the other way. Like the Cowboys might physically and mentally the Niners may have taken their soul.
I mean,
they've had to hear all week before the Niner game that the Niners own them. Now they have to hear all week that they got the living shit beat out of them. And, they're going to be angry and maybe not focused and just like, what the hell are we doing here? Trust me, players are questioning Mike McCarthy and his play calling. CeeDee Lamb is not happy.
You know what? And I think if you were just to to look at their team and look who is the leader of the team. I think a lot of people would be like, oh, it's Micah Parsons. He's the best player. He's the defensive player of the year candidate. What he said about Kittle, about wearing how Kittle wore the jersey, the F Dallas shirt. You heard that, right?
Yep, loved it.
That's a weak move by Parsons, and it shows your immaturity.
Shows his mental softness right there.
It does, because you know what? If you don't want Kittle to do that, then you go out and you have a game where you record 3 sacks, 5 quarterback hits, a couple tackle for losses, and a forced fumble. And then you're like, okay, I made my statement game. Instead, you went out against the Niners on Sunday Night Football in front of 26 million people and shit the bed. You recorded 0 sacks, 4 tackles, 0 tackle for losses, 0 pressures, 0 quarterback hits. You were a 0, and you had no impact on the game. So you can't. You got to. The way you back up your words is the play. Just play. That's all you have to do. You play.
He's a little young, and but Purdy's young too. So
exactly,
they're both 23. Some people mature faster than others. So that's just
you back it up on the field.
Yeah, but
and you let the field
Parsons is reading his own press clippings that he's the best defensive player in the NFL, that he's being compared to Lawrence Taylor, which is laughable. I saw Lawrence Taylor play. There was nobody better on defense that I've ever seen playing the game of football than Lawrence Taylor. That dude was so dominant. So yeah. Parsons has read his press clippings, and he's going to want $40 million a year when his contract comes up. Good luck. If Dak is making, they're calling him whack in Dallas. By the way, they're calling him whack Prescott. If he's making 60 and Parsons is making 40, $100 million for 2 players, good luck with that, man.
Yeah, I mean, I just think Dallas is struggling right now. They're in trouble.
I think this is a must-win for them. If
this is a must-win, because you know what? It might not be a must-win in the standings, but for the mental state of that team, they need to win this game. Because if they come out and just if they come out and lose against the Chargers, it shows that they can't recover from a beatdown. Because they lost by 32 points to the Niners on Sunday. They only get a week to prepare for the Chargers. So if they need to come out and win, and they need to win fast. Because if they sort of take it lollygaggily and don't do much and sort of don't make it, this is a statement game for the Cowboys. They need to prove to their fans and prove to everybody that they have the mental ability and the mental strain to be able to fight back from a tough loss.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and kind of throw something a little crazy out there, but I think it may happen. I think if Dak does not play better, I think Dallas is going to come off of him somehow, some way. They own $60 million, and the only way to reduce that number is to extend him years, but have to give him a raise. So if he's going to get a $60 million hit next year, they'll maybe give him 50, but for 4 years, commit him for another 4 years and $200 million. I don't think Dallas wants to do that. Their fans will not allow that. So let's say they come off of Dallas. Well, let's go to Arizona now. Arizona's getting a little bit tired of Kyler Murray. They like Dobbs a lot. So just hear me out on this. What if Arizona lets go of Murray and Kyler Murray ends up in Dallas healthy next year?
Could be, but it could also be it could also be Trey Lance.
Yeah.
They trade. What did they trade? The 4th for him or something?
Yeah.
It was kind of a confusing trade because they had Dak and they have Cooper Rush. Trey Lance is the 3rd string quarterback. He's the emergency quarterback. He's not like He's not playing at all. I guess he's suiting up because he has to be the emergency quarterback because of the new rule. But I mean, why did they trade for him? I think he has another year on his contract. I think it's very realistic that, and I think it's very possible. I think it might happen that Dallas finds a way to move off of Dak after this season.
Yeah.
Because the thing is the Cowboys' theoretical Super Bowl window is open right now. It's been open for a couple years, and the Niners have crushed their dreams each season. If they don't make, I'll say, the championship game, then I think they're gonna retool a lot of the team. I think McCarthy might be fired because I think there was some noise surrounding McCarthy last year. And they brought him back. I think if they don't get to the championship game this year, it's another disappointing season. I think they could move off of McCarthy. I think they could move off of Dak, some way. And I mean, maybe they would draft a quarterback. Maybe they would trade for Kyler, like you said, or maybe they would hand the reins to Trey Lance because Trey Lance has still only started like 6 games in his career, or no, not even 5 games. Maybe he doesn't have a lot of starting.
He's a cheap option for sure.
He's a
And
cheap option.
And he has a lot of potential.
Yep.
But he's got to get better at reading defenses. When I saw him in preseason, just holding the ball, and just allowing him to get that Raider game, he looked horrible. Looked better against Denver. But it's a possibility if Dallas wants to kind of see what the Niners are doing. Hey, let's just throw a cheap quarterback out there. Let's see what happens. Let's stock up other places. Let's re-sign some players because they have to pay Parsons. If they let Parsons go, the fan base will go crazy.
What do you think happens to CD?
I think CD, if Dak stays there, CD's gone. CD heard what oh God, who was the wide receiver that was there a couple of years ago?
Michael Irvin?
Cooper.
Oh, Amari Cooper, yeah.
Amari Cooper basically said in the locker room that Dak Prescott was a black Kirk Cousins. And coincidentally, a month later, Amari Cooper was traded for basically a handful of beans.
Which was
Amari Cooper is a hell of a wide receiver.
He's a number 1 receiver.
And they traded him, I think, for a 5th rounder. I mean, they were pissed that he didn't back their franchise quarterback. Guess what? He was right. So I think CeeDee Lamb sees what a veteran like Cooper's saying. He's seen it himself. And if they stay with that, I bet CeeDee is going to tell his agent, get me out of here.
And you know where he would go? That would be super interesting.
Come to the Niners, baby.
No. Arizona to link up with Kyler Murray, who was his college quarterback. I think if Arizona decides to stay with Kyler Murray, I think that would be interesting. Little Kyler Murray to CeeDee Lamb connection.
Yep. Aaron, I think me and Bor do agree about. I think they were trying. We talked about this on the show the other night. I think they were trying to hurt McCaffrey. I think Arizona was trying to hurt McCaffrey. I think
a lot of teams are targeting
around
McCaffrey.
The league know that CMC takes the Niners like pretty much above everybody. You take CMC out and the Niners come back down. Like they're still a really, really good team.
But they're not the juggernaut that they are now.
He makes them really, really impossible to defend.
He's an all-pro running back and he's also an all-pro receiver.
Yeah.
He's 2 players in one. And I think a lot of people have talked about this, but the Cowboys went out and said, we're going to try to stop CMC. And that first play, the first play of the game, was a 15-yard personal foul penalty for a face mask. I think that tells you all you need to know. I think teams, and no one's going to go out and say that they're trying to injure him, but I think they're headhunting a little bit. They're just trying to give him a little more oomph because he's not a big guy. He's like 5'10", 200.
That dude for his size, that touchdown that he did score, he ran right into a guy that weighs 330 pounds. Mm-hmm. He ran with everything that he had. I mean, the coaching staff has to realize that's how McCaffrey plays. And they also have to watch the film and see that people are taking shots at him. They're twisting his neck around. Golly, I had to do this a few times after I saw that. Like, man, that hurt. So they got to understand, like, if they're up on the Browns, 2 scores, 17 points,
Put Jordan Mason in, let him ride it out.
Put in Ty Davis Price. Let them carry a little bit of the load down the stretch. Just mix and match with CMC. To win a Super Bowl, we got to have them. So, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I would, going off of that, just CMC is great, but he's also, in the past, he's been injury prone. He's been susceptible to injuries, lower body injuries, which can take a toll on you. So I just include Jordan Mason in the game plan a little more. I was super happy, and I think it was super beneficial for McCaffrey to be able to rest. And Jordan Mason, it was 10 carries for like 69 yards and a touchdown on national television. So I think he instilled a little trust into Kyle and the team to be able to be that sort of change of pace back to complement CMC. Couple downs a drive, just to give McCaffrey a little rest, because McCaffrey wants to play every down of every game. And Jordan Mason is a really good back. He's powerful. He's a great number 2 back. I think on a lot of teams he could start. I think he's that good.
I'd like to see him more on short yardage.
I think so too. Sort of be the goal line back, maybe.
Yep.
I would just include Jordan Mason in the game plan a little more.
Absolutely. Hey, well, this is going to do it. We'll wrap this up. Thanks for everybody in the chat for coming on. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. We are trying to grow the channel. We are transitioning to football and basketball. We're still going to talk a little baseball, possibly tomorrow, possibly Saturday.
Here and there, sprinkled in.
Yeah, we understand it's playoff baseball. When we get down to the final 4 teams, we'll be talking about it. We're obviously going to talk about the World Series, but we are focusing a little bit more on the Niners and the Warriors upcoming. So hit that like, hit that subscribe. Please, word of mouth helps a lot. Bring people onto the show.
Yeah. Tell your friends.
We love our core people that have been with us for.
Yeah, just tell your friends. We're not just a baseball channel. We're the NorCal Sports Network.
Females in here, please.
We're not the Giants Sports Network.
Yes, exactly. So, in honor of the great Dan Coach Emilio, arrivederci. Ciatore. Go ahead, Dan. Pull the plug.